became, in everybody's minds, the result of a kind of scandal, and she became...
The curtain rises on a difficult childhood. Joan Crawford's legendary name might conjure images of glitz, Hollywood royalty, and Oscar-winning performances. But behind the fame lies the extraordinary story of a woman born into hardship, long before she became a screen goddess. Born Lucille Fay LeSueur in 1904, or possibly 1905 or even 1906, as records vary, her early years in San Antonio, Texas, were marked by absence and adversity. Her father vanished soon after her birth, leaving her mother to struggle with raising 2 children alone. By the age of 11, Joan was already working as a laundress. Her hands, too young for such hard labor, bore the evidence of a life no child should endure. But one event would define her youth more than any other: a devastating injury at the age of 12. After attempting to jump onto a moving vehicle in a moment of mischief or desperation, she was left with a deep gash on her foot, so severe, doctors considered removing the leg. She survived after multiple surgeries, but the fear of infection would become a lifelong obsession. That obsession would later evolve into a near-pathological need for cleanliness, discipline, and control, traits that shaped not only her public persona, but the disturbing behaviors alleged by her children years later. This trauma and resilience forged the foundation of the woman who would one day become Joan Crawford. From laundress to leading lady, the reinvention begins. Determined to escape the shadows of poverty, young Lucille dropped out of school and pursued dance. Her natural charisma and fierce ambition caught the attention of talent scouts as she performed across the Midwest. By 1925, she had secured a contract with MGM, earning $75 a week, a modest beginning for someone destined to become a titan of the silver screen. The studio gave her more than money. They gave her a new name: Joan Crawford. This wasn't just a rebranding, it was a rebirth. Joan committed herself entirely to the role, both on and off the screen. In her breakout role, Our Dancing Daughters, she epitomized the jazz age's flapper girl, radiant, rebellious, and relentless. She danced through scenes until her feet bled, refusing to rest until perfection was captured. By the early 1930s, she rivaled the likes of Greta Garbo and Norma Shearer. But what audiences didn't see were the sacrifices behind the scenes. Her first marriage to Douglas Fairbanks Jr., born of Hollywood royalty, quickly soured under pressure from his disapproving family. Subsequent relationships, including one with actor Franchette Tone, became tumultuous. Rumors swirled about infidelity, fiery arguments, and heartbreak. Through it all, Joan kept working, outperforming her rivals at the box office, embodying the American dream on screen while hiding mounting insecurities at home. Her transformation from working-class Lucille to powerful Joan Crawford was nearly complete, but it came at a cost. Hollywood's mother, image versus reality. In the public eye, Joan Crawford projected a vision of maternal perfection. Glamorous photo spreads showcased her with her adopted children, painting a portrait of stability and grace. But inside her gated homes, the truth was more complicated. Unable to conceive children biologically, Joan turned to adoption, first bringing Christina into her life in 1940 through a private broker, as laws at the time made it difficult for single women to adopt. Over the years, she welcomed Christopher and the twins, Kathy and Cindy, into her growing family. To the public, she was the epitome of Hollywood's generous star mother, providing for orphans, raising them in splendor. Yet years later, 2 of those children, Christina and Christopher, would claim their childhoods were far from idyllic. Allegations of excessive discipline, emotional distance, and manipulation began to emerge. But in the 1940s, none of this was visible. Crawford was crafting an image, not just a movie star but a domestic icon. And like every role she played, she demanded absolute control. The deeper she leaned into that persona, the more cracks began to show. Christina would one day claim that being Joan Crawford's daughter was like living in a movie set, everything pristine, nothing real. And still, Crawford's rise continued. The Oscar that saved her but couldn't save her peace. In 1938, Joan Crawford faced what could have been the end of her career. Branded box office poison by industry insiders, she was quietly being pushed aside at MGM, the very studio that had built her. Her roles were diminishing in both quality and prominence. Then, in a daring move, she paid $100,000 of her own money to terminate her contract, a decision many thought would destroy her. But Crawford's instincts proved sharper than ever. Just 2 days later, she signed with Warner Bros. And began a slow-burning comeback. After rejecting multiple scripts, she finally chose Mildred Pierce, a noir melodrama that mirrored her own struggles, a woman clawing her way to success for the sake of her child. Joan fought to get the role, even agreeing to screen tests, which was almost unheard of for a star of her caliber. Her performance stunned the world. In 1946, she won the Academy Award for Best Actress, cementing one of Hollywood's greatest comebacks. But this victory, like many in her life, came with a shadow. Behind closed doors, her need for control deepened. The joy of career revival did not erase the growing tension within her household. Her children later described these years not as golden, but as a period of escalating emotional strain. While the world applauded Joan Crawford's second act, her private world grew more complex and less forgiving. Vodka, velvet, and the Pepsi empire. As the 1950s dawned, Joan Crawford, then in her mid-40s, seemed to have conquered every hurdle in her path. She had triumphed over Hollywood exile, earned another Oscar nomination for Possessed, and proved herself once again with Sudden Fear. Yet beneath this powerful exterior, Joan's personal world was shifting, marked by aging, loneliness, and an unrelenting pressure to remain relevant in a youth-obsessed industry. In 1955, she married Alfred Steele, CEO of Pepsi Cola, a union that appeared to offer both companionship and a new business frontier. When Steele passed away unexpectedly in 1959, Crawford didn't retreat, she charged forward, assuming an active role on Pepsi's board. For a time, she was not just a Hollywood icon but a corporate power player, crisscrossing the country to promote the brand. But those close to her noticed a different kind of transformation as well. Her longtime fear of vulnerability began to surface in troubling ways. Reports emerged of Joan sipping vodka concealed inside Pepsi cans during meetings. Co-stars whispered about erratic behavior on set and intense mood swings. At home, the children remembered a more volatile environment, where perfection was demanded but affection was rationed. This period marked the emergence of a dual legacy, a tireless, resilient businesswoman in the spotlight, and a more fragile, unpredictable figure behind closed doors. And as the years went on, those two sides of Joan Crawford became increasingly difficult to separate. The horror years and a feud for the ages. In the 1960s, with traditional leading roles drying up, Joan Crawford shifted her career yet again, this time into the growing genre of psychological thrillers. Her 1962 film Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, co-starring longtime rival Bette Davis, became an unexpected hit. The movie's twisted tale of two aging sisters in a crumbling Hollywood mansion was as unsettling behind the scenes as it was on screen. The feud between Crawford and Davis, already simmering for decades, exploded into public view. Reports of passive-aggressive pranks, missing props, and media manipulation filled gossip columns. While the drama boosted ticket sales, it also painted a picture of two legends battling not just each other, but their own fading fame. Joan's subsequent roles in films like Straight Jacket and Trog embraced the macabre, offering her new challenges, but also signaling the dwindling of serious roles. Her once commanding presence was now part of a genre more camp than critical. Meanwhile, her appearances became increasingly erratic. Public events showcased a glamorous mask, but insiders noted slurred speeches, excessive makeup, and mounting signs of isolation. As Hollywood changed, so did its treatment of its former queens. Crawford, once the definitive image of American perseverance, was slowly being reduced to tabloid fodder. And though she stepped away from acting in the mid-1970s, her story was far from over. The will that shook Hollywood. Joan Crawford passed away on May 10, 1977, quietly in her New York apartment. She was 73, and the public braced for the ceremonial farewells often afforded to screen legends. But what followed stunned not only her fans, but the entire entertainment industry. When her will was read, two names were conspicuously absent: her adopted children, Christina and Christopher. The legal language was clear and chilling. "It is my intention to make no provision herein for my son Christopher or my daughter Christina for reasons which are well known to them." The exclusion ignited a firestorm. How could the woman who built her public image as a loving mother disown two of her children so publicly, so permanently? Charities and the remaining children received carefully planned distributions, including personal items and even her Oscar. But for Christina and Christopher, it was a statement of estrangement with no explanation. They didn't stay silent. Within months, the siblings contested the will, alleging their mother was under mental duress, manipulated, or no longer of sound judgment when she signed the document. They pointed to years of alcohol misuse, emotional swings, and family tensions. After a long legal battle, a settlement was reached. Both received a small portion of the estate, far less than expected, but enough to open the door to deeper revelations. Christina, in particular, was just getting started. Behind locked doors, a house of secrets. Following the will's controversy, attention turned to Crawford's physical estate, and what was found inside painted an even darker picture. As relatives, attorneys, and staff began sorting through her belongings, they encountered a collection of deeply unsettling items. Chief among them, a series of disembodied doll heads stacked in drawers and closets. Some were intact, others cracked or stripped of paint, their vacant eyes staring out like remnants of a broken childhood museum. To some, they were nothing more than eerie collectibles. To others, especially after Christina's memoir, they symbolized Joan's obsession with control, an eerie metaphor for how she allegedly molded those around her into silent, perfect versions of her expectations. Then came the locks, heavy-duty latches on closets, guest rooms, and even children's bedrooms. In Christopher's former room, claw-like scratches marred the inside of the door. Some speculated they were from an animal, others weren't so sure. What unsettled investigators further was the discovery of a hidden safe. Inside were letters, some affectionate, others icy, alongside photos and financial records that contradicted the image Crawford fought so hard to maintain. These discoveries weren't just about items. They were clues to a complex personality, someone who guarded her past with ferocity, even from her own family. But the most chilling chapter was yet to come, one that no legal document could explain. Ghosts in the mansion, the haunting that wouldn't end. As years passed, whispers began to emerge, not about finances, but about something far stranger. Paranormal investigators and former residents began to claim that Joan Crawford's old Brentwood mansion was restless, cold spots in the hallway, flickering lights in the nursery, the sound of a typewriter clicking long after everyone had gone to bed. Some even claimed to have seen a figure in white gliding down the staircase, the same one Crawford once descended for elaborate parties. But it wasn't just one house. Items sold at auction, mirrors, chairs, even framed photos came with strange stories from buyers, feelings of dread, objects moving, unfamiliar reflections. For skeptics, these were coincidences or folklore exaggerated over time. But for believers, it was something more. They argued that Joan Crawford's energy, shaped by decades of fierce control, never truly left. That her obsessive need to maintain order, protect her image, and manage every detail may have bound her legacy to this world in more than memory. Whether paranormal or psychological, the lasting presence of Joan Crawford, on screen, in gossip, in shadows, remains one of the most mysterious in Hollywood history. A woman who controlled every frame of her life's movie, only to have her final chapter written by others. Final curtain, Joan Crawford's legacy in pieces. In the end, Joan Crawford's story is not just one of triumph, nor only of tragedy. It's the story of a woman who climbed from poverty to stardom, who reinvented herself time and again, and who held onto power with both grace and grit. Yet behind the glitter there were shadows, some self-inflicted, some inherited, all undeniable. Her final act, played out through contested wills, shocking possessions, and ghost stories, reflects a woman whose need for control extended beyond the grave. Christina's memoir Mommie, Dearest would go on to shape public perception of Crawford for generations, casting doubt on the motherly image once so carefully curated. Whether one believes every claim or not, the cultural shift it caused cannot be ignored. Joan Crawford, the movie star, has long since faded from the silver screen, but Joan Crawford, the symbol, the warning, the enigma, the myth, continues to haunt pop culture. Her story leaves us with one pressing question. Was she a product of cruelty or a survivor molded by hardship? Perhaps, in the end, Joan Crawford was both, and maybe that's why her legacy refuses to rest quietly, lingering long after the credits have rolled.